And it's 9:17 in the morning, and you are tuned to Grecian Echoes here on WNTN, 1550 AM in Cambridge, Needham, and Boston. We're streaming at WNTN.com on this Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. It's a Wednesdays with Meleti, and your host, Meleti Pouliopoulos. I have two very special guests here in the studio with me live. Mr. Richard Barrett. He is from Cappella Romana, and they are a professional voice ensemble that performs early and contemporary sacred classical music in the Christian traditions of East and West. The ensemble is known especially for its presentations and recordings of medieval Byzantine chant, the Eastern sibling of Gregorian chant, Greek and Russian Orthodox choral works, and other sacred music that expresses the historical traditions of a unified Christian inheritance. Its recording label, Cappella Records, has released over 30 titles, and its publication arm has 2 forthcoming volumes. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Meleti. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. And we also have in the studio Mr. Harry Agritha. He is from the Somerville Parish. He is the historian, and he's also a member of the Parish Council. And good morning, Harry.
Good morning, everybody.
So nice to have both of you here in the studio. So I know you have an upcoming concert coming, and we want to talk about that. But I'd like to ask you, Richard, about the history of Cappella Romana. How did you come to find that group?
Sure. Well, Cappella Romana was established in 1991 by our founder and music director, Alexander Lingus. And to make a long story short, the Greek Orthodox Cathedral in San Francisco was destroyed by the big earthquake in 1991, and Cappella Romana was formed by Alexander to give a benefit concert for the rebuilding of the cathedral, and that went well, and it became the ensemble as it is today. Where I come into the story, I intersect in a couple of spots. I first sang with them. Or sang on stage with them, I should say, when I was just a baby singer a long, long time ago, 1997. I was just a baby tenor in Seattle, and I was doing my first professional choral gig with a group called the Tudor Choir. And we were doing this concert that was a joint performance with this Portland, Oregon-based ensemble called Cappella Romana. And that was when I first met all those guys, and that was also when I was first exposed to what we might call the sound world of Orthodox music. And I got to be friends with a lot of those singers and stayed in touch with them, and eventually became Orthodox myself a few years later. And as I stayed in touch with those guys, I continued my own deep dive into that music and joined their performing roster in 2014, and I've sung a lot of concerts with them over the last 10 years, and then I joined the full-time staff in 2021 as Director of Publications. So it's been a journey.
Yes, and the group performs all over the country?
Yes, we have a regular concert season in the Pacific Northwest, in Portland and Seattle. And then we tour all over the United States. We tour internationally. We've performed in Iași, Romania. We've performed in Greece. We've performed in Utrecht, Netherlands, in what's the largest early music festival in the world, in the UK, so on and so forth.
And can you describe the type of music that you perform?
Sure. Cappella Romana specializes, broadly speaking, in what we might call the sacred vocal music of East and West that represents the musical inheritance of Byzantium. So we do medieval Byzantine chant. Yes, that's kind of the thing that's put us on the map. But we also do modern Byzantine chant. We do Greek-American choral polyphony. We do Slavic choral music. We do new commissions by all kinds of composers that bears this Byzantine influence of some kind. We do even some very, very old Gregorian chant, let's say, that that still maintains a certain continuity with medieval Byzantine chant. So it's our very name, Cappella Romana, kind of is intended to reflect the idea of a unified ecumeny, a unified sort of Roman identity that encompasses both Greek and Latin. And so, yeah, that's what we do.
How does this music fit in for those that are listening that may be used to, say, going to church and hearing a chanter and then maybe hearing a choir, as we have choirs here in America? How does this Byzantine chanting fit in? Is it something that's performed regularly? It seems more like it to a monastery than to an actual church, or do I have that wrong?
It's a great question. So, the Greek-American choral polyphony experience is one that's been enriched by a number of composers who have been and are dear friends of Cappella Romana, like Taiki Zess, Frank Desby, Peter Michaelides, and so on. The Byzantine chant tradition, in a lot of respects, was sort of a late addition to the Greek-American scene. Because related very closely to this concert program, a lot of the early waves of immigration from Greece didn't have people who were really entrenched in that tradition, so it wasn't what came over so much, and it's kind of been folded back in, particularly over the last 20 years.
And you mentioned some names there that I'm familiar with, and I know that they've also worked with the National Forum of Greek Orthodox Church musicians and choir members. So it's very good. We have some samples of your choral group's recordings, and is there one that we could select just for a few minutes to give our audience a sample of your sound?
Sure. You could play, I think I gave you a sample of a piece called, from a section of the Divine Liturgy called the Typika. This is Psalm 145, what's called the second stasis of the Typika. And this is from our program Out of the Ashes of Smyrna that we're performing next month.
We're listening to a recording by the choral group Cappella Romana. They are a professional group that's been around for over 30 years. We have Richard Barrett in the studio, and he's here to talk with us about the Byzantine traditions in music. And also we have Mr. Harry Agritha, who is the historian from the Somerville Parish, and he is also on the parish council, and they are bringing a concert of Cappella Romana out of the ashes of Smyrna, the legacy of Byzantine chant from Asia Minor. I'd like to just ask you about the program. Who came up with the idea for the program?
Sure. The program is the brainchild of Cappella Romana's associate music director, John Michael Boyer, who is a Greek American himself and an expert cantor. And he's married to a Greek historian from Thessaloniki. And this era, the Asia Minor catastrophe, is very much her area of specialty. And he came up with this program to honor the centennial of the burning of Smyrna, and he really wanted to do a deep dive into the unique chanting tradition of Smyrna as it existed at that point before the population exchange, because it's a unique expression of the chant tradition in a lot of respects that's very influenced by local ingredients, if you like. It really, being at some remove from kind of traditional, even staid, perhaps, Constantinople, it represented the avant-garde in a lot of respects of the chant tradition. And much of that was lost when those cantors were kind of sent back to Constantinople or repatriated into the Greek mainland, and elements of that tradition just were sort of discarded. Some of them made it very much into the mainstream, ironically so, to a certain extent. But a lot of the really good stuff just had been lost, and John wanted to recover that in a way that honored the history.
And in your program, do you explain, do you talk about the music, or is it just all musical performance? Are there introductions and history provided?
The historical context is provided by the program note, or program notes, I should say, because for the Somerville performance next month, we have a number of program notes. Father Gregory Christakos of Saints Anagiri Church, he's written a piece on generational trauma resulting from genocide and displacement that certainly is relevant to the concert topic. And then the program also ties really heavily into the specific local history of the Dormition Parish, which is one of the reasons we wanted to do it there. And so there's going to be a note about that as well. The detailing kind of the Smyrnian context pre-1922 and how that ties into Dormition.
Can you, and I want to delve into that with Harry, and I know, Harry, that you've prepared some historical notes that you want to share just to give people the foundation of the community and why this particular concert is so well suited for this area. But I first want to ask you, what is the role of music in the church and in spiritual life? Do you have a reflection on that?
I do. Going back to late antiquity, the 2nd century AD and on, you have a lot of talk about music being... there's one patristic writing that talks about music being the honey that's smeared on the cup of strong medicine, in terms of in terms of church worship. And there's kind of a joke there because honey in Greek is meli, and then melody is melos, right? So there's sort of a pun there in that image. And then later on, you have fathers writing about how music inspires us and deceives us to worship God through the delight of the melody. And then even in the words of our own hymnography, like the cherubic hymn, let us sing to the Holy Trinity and lay aside all earthly cares. Right? This is an act of worship and an act of sensory immersion, if you like, that elevates us and inspires us spiritually and unites us with the choirs of angels in heaven. I mean, that's in a nutshell. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's a very nice way of describing it. We want to let the audience know now you've been here in the studio before, and a lot of people know you in the area, that you were most recently executive director of the Ages Initiative. Mm-hmm. And that initiative had put out, is that the initiative that put out the choral books, the online choral
The digital
stand?
chant stand,
That's what
yes,
it is.
yeah.
And that's being used by a number of churches across
Mm-hmm.
the country.
Yep.
And that's wonderful. You're also the artistic director and co-founder of the St. John of Damascus Society.
Yep.
Of which, by the way, many years ago, you probably know, I had received a recognition for my work in with the choirs and documenting the choirs, particularly of New England and choral music.
Mm-hmm.
Then you were the director of music at the Holy Dormition Greek Orthodox Church in Somerville, Mass.,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the concert's going to be taking place. You did study Byzantine chant,
Mm-hmm.
and who were your mentors in that space?
My first mentor was a gentleman named Ioannis Arvanitis, who's currently on the faculty at Ionian University in Kerkyria. He was in Athens when I first studied with him. Other mentors include, of course, Father Romanos Karanos, who is well known to the Boston community. John Michael Boyer is certainly been a mentor where this is concerned. Alexander Lingus, definitely, the founder of Cappella Romana. I would say those have been my major mentors. Those have been the people who have kept me going.
Those are good people, and you're singing now not just in Cappella Romana, but also you have sung with other choral groups,
Mm-hmm.
and you mentioned Father Romanos, and I believe Saltikon is his baby, or at least it's been his baby now for many years.
Yeah, Father Romanos sings with Psaltikon. It's really the baby of Dr. Spiridon Andonopoulos.
Yes, yes.
Who also is singing in this program in Somerville next month.
Very, very nice. That's so nice. Well, let's talk about this concert coming up in Somerville. But first, we want to bring to the microphone Mr. Harry Agritha, and he is from the Somerville community. He is very active in the church and very concerned and has been collecting their history. He is also a member of the Parish Council. Harry, good morning.
Good morning.
It's so nice to see you. And I know that you've prepared some historical notes that you wanted to share with the audience, just to give some people a foundation. And what do you have to say about the history of the church?
Well, the history of the Greek community in Somerville began over a century ago in 1906 when the first immigrants from Meleti, Asia Minor, arrived. In Asia Minor, they lived under constant threat, unable to openly express their Hellenic heritage or faith. Turkish policies sought to eliminate all foreign culture and influence, forcing them to be very cautious. On September 15, 1922, the world learned of the atrocities in Smyrna. The Boston Globe reported 120,000 Christians were raped, burned alive, butchered, or drowned in the harbor on that day. For the Greeks of Somerville, now originally the Greeks in Somerville came here to work, send money back to Greece, and then eventually go back or bring people back, but they didn't have to stay in Somerville. But now, after this event, the Greeks of Somerville, the destruction of Smyrna was a painful realization. They understood that there would be no going back to the villages of their ancestors. Their future was here in America. It was here that their children would be born, raised, grown to be a permanent part of the Somerville community. In 1915 and 1916, the waves of immigration continued, and with them, hundreds more Greek families arrived, many as refugees seeking solace and a fresh place to start. It became clear that Somerville needed a place of worship, a sanctuary where the community could come together and find comfort. On August 16, 1916, the Dormition of the Virgin Mary Greek Orthodox Church in Somerville opened its doors. This was not just a building, it was a beacon of hope. Come and experience the amazing acoustics in our newly renovated historic church.
That's right. Now, what happened? Was there a fire there, or there was some damage, water damage? And
There was water damage, there was smoke damage in the entire nave. The entire everything needed to be restored.
What was it? Was it a storm, or was it a leaky pipe? Or
The fire started in the narthex, and one of the large white candles had split, and it dropped, and it lit the candle stand on fire. Fortunately, Somerville's best, the fire department came and put the fire out.
Excellent.
Within minutes.
Wow.
The alarms went off. If that didn't happen, the whole church would have went up in flames.
And
in just a few minutes, a minute or two later.
You know that we have a lot of churches we lost that way, especially in the 1950s.
Right.
The church up in Dover had been destroyed by that way.
Really?
Many churches around New England. And then there were campaigns to rebuild them. And it was all from, fires in the narthex, or people lit a candle, or, and geez, it's just very dangerous. I think about that in my own home. And to just, for those of you that have open flames in your home, be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
And also for the elderly people, watch your stove. Because I left the house this morning with my back burner on high.
Oh, no.
And it's one of those ovens that just doesn't quit. And it would have been a meltdown up there. A lot of, so just be careful of those things.
We were very lucky. The Somerville Fire Department saved our church.
Isn't that great?
They sure did.
You're very lucky. And you have a beautiful community. Now, you grew up in the community,
I
Harry.
did.
Yeah, so you remember the old timers? Your dad was a drummer. I remember your
Yes.
dad performing.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
man.
My grandfather was the first sexton in the Somerville church.
Was he really?
1923, when they opened up their first freestanding church on Somerville Ave.
Oh, yeah, that's the newer church. So when you grew up, the church was somewhere else?
No,
that was it,
The old church was in 1923.
You're not that old, Harry.
No, but that's
I didn't
where
mean to insult you.
that was the first freestanding church. It was purchased on Somerville Ave at a cost of like $19,000 to build the church from the ground up, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then, as a result of World War II and the baby boomers, in 1947 we purchased the 29 Central Street property at a cost of $32,000. But we went from 100 families in the old church to 400 in the new church. That's how much we grew.
Yeah, because people were coming over in waves and
having babies.
And having babies. And it's so interesting because this is a year where a lot of people are talking about immigration.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have half the problems that are happening in other parts of the world, even in Greece and in the Middle East. There's huge millions of people that are getting displaced. And somehow centering ourselves around churches seems like a very good idea to me. And that's how the Greek communities did it here in the area. And very, very proud of the traditions, the Asia Minor traditions. I'd like to go back and, just break for a second and put another song from this and talk a little bit about the concert and what we have planned.
Sure.
Is that okay? And would you introduce the next piece, please?
Yes. So this is a cherubic hymn from the Divine Liturgy, and it's by the composer Kiltsanidis, who is mostly known these days for editions of standard chant books, but this cherubic hymn really reflects more of his own personal Smirneika, if you like, and it's a lovely piece.
This is the cherubic hymn, and it's Cappella Romana. They're a vocal group that is celebrating Byzantine chant traditions, and we have live here in studio Mr. Richard Barrett, who is a member of Cappella Romana. He is also the Director of Publication, Grants, and Operations, so he's the guy. How would people find out more about your organization? Is there a website?
Absolutely, www.capellaromana.org. And the Somerville concert in particular, www.capellaromana.org/Somerville.
That's wonderful. I noticed that and thank you, by the way, for posting the new flyer on Facebook last evening. You could find it there. And also, for those of you that are listening now to this show, you can save 20% on your admission by using the code Meleti on your ticket in advance. So when you go to purchase your ticket, just write in MELETI, and you will get 20% off of your admission, and we appreciate that. It's a lot of people listening, and this is such a great opportunity for us here. Now, how do people get involved with Cappella Romana? In other words, someone like me, I'm an untrained voice. Is there something for me there?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, especially now, because we're hoping to use this concert next month as kind of a jumping off point for a regular season in the Northeast, New England and New York and so on. And this is really an audience building opportunity for us. And I would say that, anybody listening to the show who wants to get involved and help support a regular season, I would encourage those people to contact me, and believe me, I'll find something for you to do.
There we go. And just so I know, a lot of people listening are familiar with the cherubic hymn. Can you explain? Just give us an overview of when that comes in the during the Divine Liturgy. We listen to it, and what is it about? Yeah,
absolutely. So the Divine Liturgy is divided, broadly speaking, into two parts. There's what's called the Liturgy of the Word, or the Liturgy of the Catechumens, sometimes you'll hear it referred to as, and then you have the Liturgy of the Eucharist, or the Liturgy of the Faithful. And essentially the first half is readings, the second half is communion. And the cherubic hymn happens right at the midpoint between those two sections. It's really the transition from the public proclamation of Scripture, and in some cases the homily, depending on what your priest does, into the participation in the mystery of the Eucharist. And the text really reflects that. We who represent the cherubim, let us now lay aside all earthly cares and sing the hymn to the all-holy Trinity, for we are about to receive the King of all, who comes invisibly upborn. So it's really about preparing as a community, as a worshiping body, to receive communion and to bear the image of the angels in heaven in doing so.
Yeah, it's the part of the service that we're normally kneeling at that point in the Orthodox Church.
I suppose so, yeah.
Yeah. And so, again, if people want to find out more about Cappella Romana, they have, you said over 31 recordings that are available, and you have a number of videos online.
We do.
And now tell us again about your academic background, Richard, because obviously you just didn't learn this watching a few YouTube videos.
Well, so I have a undergraduate degree in vocal performance, so there was a period in my life where I was pursuing an operatic career, and then Byzantine chant happened. As the joke goes, if you ever want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And then I have a master's degree in ancient history, studying the late antique world of the Roman Empire, East and West. And I have an unfinished PhD in the same area. But I spent a lot of years in grad school working on that stuff, and also doing things in ethnomusicology and modern Greek studies, and art history and things like that.
Was it your master's that you had gotten at Indiana University?
That's correct.
Interesting, very interesting. It's just such a pleasure to have you here, and to be sharing your knowledge and your music with our listening audience. There is this opportunity to take advantage of both the concert, but also Richard has prepared podcasts. If you want to learn more about the Byzantine music tradition, how can people find your podcast?
Oh, sure. So I host a podcast on Byzantine music with my friend Amy Hogue, who is the protopsaltria, let's say, of the Greek Orthodox Cathedral in Pittsburgh, St. Nicholas. And the podcast is titled A Sacrifice of Praise. And if you go to the website ancientfaith.com and search on A Sacrifice of Praise or my name or Amy Hogue's name, you'll find it.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Let's talk about the concert again. Out of the Ashes of Smyrna, the legacy of Byzantine chant from Asia Minor. And it's going to be in Somerville at the Dormition of the Virgin Mary on Wednesday, November 13th. And how do people find tickets?
They can get tickets at the door, or I would encourage people to go to www.capellaromana.org/Somerville. And use the code Meleti, of course.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. It'll be interesting to see how many people take advantage of that 20% off on their tickets. And will the concert be in the church or will it be in the hall?
It'll be in the church. With the gorgeous renovation and the new acoustic of the renovated church, it's really a perfect venue for this program in so many respects.
You know, it's been many years since I've been inside the church. I've, of course, gone to the festivals, but I always try to encourage people when they can, and to if they're traveling and they come to the Boston area, or if maybe their relatives are from Asia Minor and they've never been to Somerville, there's another reason. But just in general, go in and light a candle, talk to someone, introduce yourself, see the beauty of the church. The iconography, I remember, was always beautiful in Somerville. And speaking of icons, Harry, I think you have a great story, because you and I, as historians, we have the same passion about this sort of thing, and we end up seeing things sometimes in boxes and in basements that we end up rescuing and conserving. And that conservator role is so important, and I appreciate so much of what you have been doing. Tell us about the icon that you found.
About 12 years ago, when I became the church photographer, I found an icon in the narthex in a broken frame. And I saw the date, and I brought it to Father's attention. We had it meticulously restored. It's the original icon of the original church when we opened our doors in August 6th of 1916, and it's on display in a beautiful case in the narthex.
That's it. And you had it restored.
We had it restored by a museum quality.
Nice. Very, very nice. And how old is did they date it?
It's the original icon from 1916. More Greek churches were started in 1916 than any other time in history.
Yeah. That's
in this country.
So wonderful that you did that. Up at St. George in Manchester, we had an old icon of St. George going for that far back, even a little more, I think, and we had to have it restored because it'd been damaged, over the years. And I think the old style iconography was taken down in a lot of churches to, get back to. I'm really interested in seeing this. Now, there's another reason why you should go. But now that's going to be inside the church, or is it in the narthex?
It's in the narthex.
Okay, so Sunday services happen regularly there. The community is a very healthy community. It's a lot. They have great festivals, so very, very proud. And I remember there's certain things. Everyone's got memories of Somerville, so I wanted to share with you a couple of memories that maybe we have this in common. There were ladies that used to make these wonderful loukoumades, and they were like the size of your fist, and they wouldn't give up the recipe. No one really knew how they did it, but that's why we went. And I'm talking about 40 years ago. Do you remember those? Do you
Yes.
remember that?
And to this day, the Loukoumades are still the best seller at our festival.
Absolutely.
Really? That's so
Absolutely.
good.
Same recipe, by the way, same family.
Is that right?
Yes, yes.
That is so good to hear. Traditions being preserved and traditions continuing. And I do want to go and play one more track. I want to thank you both. Why don't we play the final track that you brought, Richard, from Cappella Romana. Again, they're performing at the Dormition Parish in Somerville at Wednesday, November 13th. It's a special concert of Byzantine chant, Out of the Ashes of Smyrna, the legacy of Byzantine chant from Asia Minor. And Richard, if you could introduce this.
Absolutely. So this is a type of hymn called a doxastikon, and it's from Lent. It's from the Sunday of the Samaritan woman, and this would have been sung at Vespers, Saturday evening. And it's a hymn celebrating the themes of that particular Sunday of Lent.
Byzantine vocal group Cappella Romana, and a track that was brought in by Mr. Richard Barrett, who has been speaking all morning, well, the last 45 minutes here anyway, and I appreciate so much you coming in again, Richard. Good luck. And Harry, thank you for coming in and sharing the history. That was a lot of fun, and we want to wish you both very, very well. I hope to see you at the concert, and if not, maybe some Sunday soon. So,
thanks so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Stay tuned. We have the news report with Nicoletta coming up right at the top of the hour. It's Wednesdays with Meleti and your host, Meleti Pouliopoulos.